Okay, as we're taking our seats, we're all over the Bible again. We're actually coming to the end of our series on free indeed. And we've covered a lot in this series. And what remains in terms of the next 2 weeks, I think is actually of most importance in terms of what we have done. We're going to look at the consummation of the world. And tonight, to look at the end of all things, you have to look at what is going to happen to get us there. And that is why we're looking at the battle at the end of time. Now, I just want to give a throw-out statement. Much of the 21st century Christian view on eschatology is influenced not by the Bible, but what has been called by scholars Christian Platonism. Which is the idea that, the true place of the Christian is in heaven. And so we must die so we can go to heaven, or we must get raptured so we can go to heaven, right? And so all our focus is on the otherworldly, and it misses out what we are supposed to be doing here. And in fact, it robs us of our motivation. Do you realize that if the gospel is true, if what we've been saying for the last 23 weeks tonight is true, the church should be doing victory laps around the world. We should be going out and just running through the kingdoms of darkness saying, it's coming, the kingdom is coming, come on in because it's time. But we're not. In fact, we've descended, we've pulled back from society, and we hide in our huddles, and we miss out that we shouldn't be on the defensive. We should be on an all-out assault against the forces of chaos and uncreation, the forces of evil. In fact, when you speak to Christians about the end of things. I've chatted to a couple of people. I'm bummed they're not here tonight. But we're going to look at the battle of the end of times. You know what their response was almost every single time? I don't want to be there. Because it seems scary, right? In fact, what we're going to talk about tonight is going to seem scary if you miss out on what the whole point is. In fact, I'm hoping by the end of tonight, you're going to say, I want to be there. I want to be in that battle because it's going to be amazing. God is going to put things right. So with that, let's look at this. The first thing we're going to see is that the world has a cosmic conflict. I've tried to establish that for the last couple of weeks as we looked at the spiritual world. But there are forces, both human and spiritual, that are on the side of good. And there are forces, both human and spiritual, that are on the side of bad, of evil, right? And this is why the Marvel movies work. We love stories about good and evil, right? For the men in the audience. Wouldn't it be awesome at the end of time to be standing on the mountain and there's behind you and around you all the forces, spiritual and human, standing, looking at the forces of evil. And you got your sword, you're ready. I mean, we love those stories, right, guys? Guys, chicks are like, this sounds like Lord of the Rings, it's just fighting. I love Natalie's comments. She's like, they walk and they fight. That's all they do. And if you read the book, yes, that is all they do. But our literature actually speaks of this instinct, that there should be a battle between real good and real evil. The reality is that there are forces that entirely desire destruction and evil, and there are forces that entirely desire life and goodness presented in the biblical narrative, and they are at work today. And the forces of light and darkness are in conflict. Even now, even in this church. And guess what? We are caught up in the middle of that conflict, of a cosmic war between real evil and real good. of light and dark. And you know what? In this war, sometimes light gets the advantage, and sometimes darkness gets the advantage. There's battles, and people are lost. In fact, I want to suggest tonight that that is how we should be reading the last book of the Bible. The last book of the Bible is the battle at the end of time. In fact, it's the battle throughout time, if you read it properly, between these great forces of good and great forces of evil. In fact, one of the weirdest scenes in the book is where I'm going to land tonight. So I'm going to stick because hopefully it's interesting enough to get you motivated. This is found in Revelation chapter 9. And I'll read this together. Revelation chapter 9. The fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to earth. Stars are always representative of angelic forces or spiritual forces. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. Reader, take note. When he opened the abyss, smoke rose from it like smoke from a gigantic furnace. Again, reader, take note. The sun and sky were darkened by smoke from the abyss, and out of the smoke locusts came down on the earth and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plants of the trees, but only those people who did not have the seal on their foreheads. They were not allowed to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. And the agony they suffered was like that of a sting of a scorpion when it strikes. During those days, people will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads they wore something like a crown of gold. Their faces resembled human faces. Their hair was like that of woman's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like that of the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. And their tails with stingers, like scorpions in their tails, had the power to torment people for 5 months. They had a king over them, the angel of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek is Apollyon, that is, the destroyer. We read stories like that, or passages like that, and again, I'd always love to be in your head with the visual images that are trying to pop in there, right? These images seem to contradict or fight against itself to make something coherent, right? Like you read this and like, okay, it's a locust, but it's got a human face and long hair and it wears a crown, and the image gets muddled until some insane pastor one day says, you see, this is Apache helicopters. And it's not. In fact, the descriptors here are quite profound. Going back to what I originally said, Revelation is showing us evil's final push. And one of those pushes is this release, these demonic locusts. So what are these things? Theories abound, right? Apache helicopters, whatever. Let's go with the strange ones. But there are a number of clues that the writer, John the Seer, gives us in the passage. The first one is where I told you to take notice. Where do these creatures come from? The abyss. We're going to read later that this is a common understood term in the New Testament and the first century. In fact, it's got many names. Sometimes it's called Tartarus, the deepest of hells. And any first century Jew, and in fact any Greek, would have known that what was locked in the abyss was something terrifying that brought chaos on the world. To the Greeks, their mythology spoke of the Titans that were locked into the abyss in the deepest fires to be released at the end. To the Jews, this was the angels who created the Nephilim. They were locked in the abyss. Now, church, there's other descriptors. All the language here speaks of witch kings, kings who are warlocks, witches. Again, you read through Second Temple literature and you'll be fascinated how many of these descriptors link up with the demonic watcher kings, the angels who spread the Nephilim into the world. All the descriptors match up with this. So if the writer of the Revelation is true, at the end of time, the watchers are going to be released to lay chaos again to the world. But did you notice something? They weren't allowed to touch those marked by God. Now, church, we always interpret that as us, right? Right? We won't be touched. However, read through Revelation and you'll see the marked by God is not every Christian. Bear with me. Go back a couple of chapters. You'll see in Revelation chapter 7, an army is set up and called out of the nation of Israel. 12,000 from every tribe except for one. And these are marked by God. And so everyone's like, who the 144,000? Okay, so it's the watchers. That's a weird one. I've never heard this before. You're making stuff up. Now you're saying the 144,000 are this. What's this? What's going on here? You read these descriptors and you see the language spoken about here is virgin warriors selected from the tribes of Israel. And you might be thinking, what? Virgin warriors. Well, let's ask the question. What was the crime of the watchers? They slept with the daughters of men. And so God calls together, not a spiritual, but a physical force that will fight against the last incursion from the tribes of Israel. And he says they will be marked of God, prepared for battle. They have never touched a woman. These are the virgin warriors on the side of good. And do you see? It's them that the watchers cannot harm or kill. God prepares good for bad. In fact, at the end of time, God is setting up a group set apart by him, humans from the tribe of Israel, who will battle against demonic forces. In fact, Revelation depicts an ever-growing crisis between good and evil. Evil is set out to torment, and yet God is setting the stage for his final victory. Now, this brings up something very crucial for us to understand. I might have confused you with the virgin warriors and the watchers. It sounds weird, but it makes sense if Revelation is setting up a cosmic battle between all the forces of good and all the forces of evil. This has to be a physical and spiritual battle that is played out in history at the end of time. And so, church, let's ask, if you collect all the forces of evil together, what do they truly fear? What does the forces of darkness truly fear? Well, there's one thing that the forces of darkness know, because it's obvious to them. They're going to lose. They don't think that they're going to win this battle. They know they're going to lose it. They fear that. Do you realize that? They are doing everything in their power to stall the inevitable end. So why torment us? Why frustrate us? Why keep us busy with endless busy work and pointless distractions? Because that, church, that delays their inevitable destruction. Do you want to see this, an example of this in Scripture? Jesus goes into the land of the Gentiles in Luke chapter 8, and he comes across a man possessed by demons. And when the demons see him, they say, he said he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him and said with a loud voice, "What do I have to do with you, Jesus, the Son of the Most High God. I beg you, do not torment me. The engagement continues. Jesus asked him, what is your name? And he said, Legion, because we have many demons have entered him. And they began imploring him that he would not order them to depart into the abyss. Do you see that they know their destiny? They know it's coming. All of them do. In fact, if you see that language again, the abyss, this is a central place where they will be sent before, but they're going to be released from there before the end of time. See, the forces of darkness know instinctively, it's just obvious because they're not idiots, that they have no hope of an actual battle between them and God Most High and His Son, Jesus Christ. In fact, at the end of the book of Revelation, all the forces gather together. There's a great battle. Men, prepare yourself. You're going to be on that valley looking out, and the forces of darkness, and you just prepare, guys, just prepare. And how's the battle end? Jesus comes, and with the sword of his mouth, literally with his words, he decimates the entire army. Bit of a damn squib of an end. You're going to be prepared, and it's just like, you're done, everyone of the evil sides. I mean, I'm pretty cool, I won't lie. I want to be there. I want to be there. But they know that's going to happen. They know that that is their end. And that is what they fear. The coming of the King of Kings. They know that when that happens, they're done. They're toast. However, this leaves a question. What is delaying the coming of the King of Kings? Because that's what they're going to be busy doing, is delaying him. If they can, they're going to be delaying him. Well, to see what delays the coming of the King of Kings, we have to turn to Matthew 24, the famous Olivet Discourse. In chapter 14, Jesus says, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." Did you pick it up, church? What is delaying the coming? The gospel's not gone to all nations. In fact, it's corroborated by Paul in Romans chapter 11, verse 25, when he says, "I do not want to be ignorant of the mystery, brothers and sisters, so that you might not be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of the Gentiles have come in." In fact, on a totally side note, do you notice that the virgin warriors are taken from all the tribes of Israel bar one? What's the problem with that today? 10 of the tribes are lost. They were bred into the nations because of the conquest of the Assyrians. And so this is what Paul and Jesus are linking back to. If we're going to have a united Israel to draw this army out of, where do you think the people are going to come from? The nations. They have to hear the good news. The Jews, the lost tribes, will be called out of the nations as the gospel of this kingdom goes to every tribe and tongue and nation. And that's when the end will come. And the forces of darkness, church, know this. They absolutely know this. They're not stupid. And so what is their tactic? It's simple. Get the church doing everything other than what she was called to do, which is preach the gospel. Get her obsessed with the length of the tassels on the bottom of the priestly robe, because you know that's really going to save the world. Get them really obsessed about the color of the carpet of the church. No jokes. I was in a church where there was nearly a church split because someone wanted to change the carpet from red to blue. Because you know what really reaches the nations? Is a blue carpet. We got it, church. The forces of darkness laugh at us, though. And let's be real, church. Willow Park, I mean, you guys are great. Especially you guys. You're the remnant, like the specials of the specials. Do we not get obsessed with completely trivial problems? Do we not have issues with our brothers and sisters, our fellow warriors against the forces of darkness, over something that actually in the scope of eternity will mean less than bunk? And the forces of darkness laugh because we lose ground. In fact, we live in a generation where the church has been chased into the valleys and into the gaps of society and into private little conclaves. And the forces of darkness say, carry on. Let it delay. Because as long as it delays, the king will not come. You see how we are so obsessed about getting to heaven that we forget that even in this generation, we could be riding out in victory to bring Jesus back. Now, I want to encourage you. They will delay us. They will fight against us. They will plant seeds of division and hate even in our churches. But does Christ not say, at the foot of Mount Hermon, by the way, where Jesus meets in Caesarea at Pan's Gate, at the gates of hell, that mountain is the base of Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is almost universally agreed with amongst the Jews as the place where the watchers came down to spread their chaos into the world. Jesus stands at the foot of that rebellion, at the foot of that evil, and what does he say? You are Peter. On this confession, on this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. We kind of think of that as defensive language, don't we? But it's not. Jesus is storming the gates of hell, the land of evil, where everything went wrong. And he said, guess what, guys? Nothing's going to stop us. The church will win. I will build my church. So this leads us to our final point. Do not fear. Speak the good news. In fact, I wished I'd said preach the good news. But speak the good news is just as good. Is there going to be frustration in the days to come? Yeah. Is there going to be pain? I'm almost certain we're going into a dark days. In fact, even chatting to someone this afternoon, saying like, the end is near. And I said, the end's always been near, but yes, it's nearer than it's ever been. Like if you not see the forces of evil rallying at the moment, it's just a matter of moments till that abyss opens and the end comes and the battle's there. Why should you be afraid? You shouldn't. That moment is our victory. Do you realize that? Because what will happen is this. As we go out into the world preaching the good news, they cannot stop it. And eventually, I love this idea, I always say it, but it's just such a cool idea. Eventually, this one missionary is going to go to the last people group on the planet, and he's going to say, I want to tell you some good news. And that's it. And the thing is, when that happens, the forces of evil know that they've lost. And that is what causes that great rally at the end of time, that great battle, because they have no other hope. We are going to the ends of the earth with the message of the kingdom. That is inevitable. Jesus promised us that. What I love about this, though, is how does good defeat evil in the biblical narrative? In the Marvel movies, right? It's always like right at the end, there's always that twist. And I remember Endgame, right? Like they're fighting, it's really bad, and then suddenly the snap, right? That intervention. That's never how it happens in the Bible. It's such an interesting narrative. It's such an interesting underplay because it teaches us our actual tactic. We don't have to get angry. We don't have to fight. We don't have to arm yourself, Christian soldier, right? Prepare yourself for war. Yeah, prepare yourself for war. But our battle is not with flesh and blood, right? Our battle is with spiritual weapons. In fact, when evil attacks and roars and strikes at the Son of God and kills him in their hate, God overcomes with love. Their greatest act becomes the salvation of the world. And when Christ's people head out into the world, evil resists, it fights, it wars. In fact, it kills many on the mission. But the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, as Tertullian famously said. Don't you see that where there's the greatest resistance of evil, the church finds fertile ground for the seed of the gospel? Where's the church growing the greatest in the world at the moment? Where it is persecuted to the ninth. Where evil resists the most, the gospel will go out in power. In fact, one of the greatest tricks the devil will play on us today, especially in Wilro, is to try and make us comfortable and happy with our lot in this world that is heading towards the flame, rather than what we should be, which is on mission, so that our King would come. We are on a victory lap to the inevitable defeat of all evil, church. And it's through a simple message. Jesus Christ came into the world to die for sinners, of which I am chief. So are you, and so is everyone outside of this building. And don't you see that everyone who hears it is one step closer to our great King coming, and with the sword of his mouth saying, "It's done." Can I ask a question as we close? Are you a little bit more excited about being at the battle at the end of time? It's scary, but let's be real, so is going out there and preaching the gospel. And yet when we do it, it's our greatest joy. Because we see the victory of the cross. And that's what we'll see at the end of time. So church, get excited. In fact, get pumped. Because we're going on a victory lap. Let's go this week. Let's pray. Lord, we're excited for you coming. Our great King riding on his victory horse upon the clouds. And I can imagine that day, Lord. Those who are alive, standing with angelic beams of the forces of good, shining against the horrors of the evil of chaos. And yet we will not fire a single bullet. We will not draw a single sword. We will watch our glorious King defeat all evil with the word of his mouth. Lord, I pray that we would get that even today, in our mouths is your word, the gospel of this kingdom. Let us go out in that power for the glory of the Father, and in Jesus' name. Amen.